Hello and welcome to episode number 181, where I'm speaking with Divya Alter of Divya's Kitchen, an Ayurvedic restaurant in New York, where we're talking about how to set up your kitchen so it has flow, good energy, and a good foundation from which to cook. We talk about practical things like choosing your cookware, your kitchen tools, your appliances, and lots more. So please stay tuned. Hello and welcome to the Elements of Ayurveda podcast. I'm your host Colette, and I hope to educate and empower you to take charge of your health and well-being, preventing disease in the body and mind so that you can thrive in life. I will be sharing the holistic teachings of Ayurveda, the ancient healing tradition from India. I will also discuss topics like yoga, which is the sister science of Ayurveda, health and wellness, nutrition, fitness, and mindfulness practices, as well as interviewing lots of inspiring people along the way. My humble wish is to help you to connect to your true nature, to Mother Nature, and to help you to connect to each other. If you're new to Ayurveda, I recommend that you start by listening to the first couple of episodes where I do an introduction to Ayurveda and the mind-body types. Now, if you like the content, please subscribe to the show so the new episodes will automatically download for you to enjoy. I've also set up a new private community away from social media on my new website, Elements Healing and Wellbeing. Now, this community provides a safe space for like-minded people to come together, to connect, to share, and to support each other. And I have many other perks in this community as well, so check it out. I'll put the link in the show notes or visit my website, elementshealingandwellbeing.com, and just click on the community tab in the menu. I hope you can join us. I'm looking forward to a lot more in-depth connection and conversation over there. And now, here's the show. Hello and welcome back to the Elements of Ayurveda podcast. I'm very happy to welcome back Divya Alter, who is a certified nutritional consultant, educator, and co-founder of Bhagavat Life, the only Ayurvedic culinary school in Manhattan. She and her husband Prentice also own Divya's Kitchen, an Ayurvedic restaurant in Manhattan. And Divya is the author of What to Eat for How You Feel, the new Ayurvedic kitchen, which is what we're going to talk about today, setting up your Ayurvedic kitchen so you have a great foundation from which to prepare your beautiful sattvic Ayurvedic meals. Divya, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Colette. It's always a pleasure to speak with you.
Oh, thank you, Divya, and likewise. And I'm looking forward to this conversation today because I do get a lot of questions on kitchen supplies, utensils, how to set it up. And I like cooking, but I'm certainly not on your level of cooking and with your knowledge base. So I look forward to picking your brain today and sharing with the listeners how to set up your kitchen so that you have a good, like I said, foundation from which to cook. Let's talk about that a little bit, Divya. Why is it important to set up your kitchen well?
Well, if you're dedicated to preparing fresh meals for yourself and your family every day, then you'll be spending quality time in your kitchen. So why not arrange your kitchen as a space that you really like being in, that gives you joy, that gives you inspiration, a space that is organized in a way that you can also very efficiently prepare your meals, so you're not wasting time trying to find ingredients or pots or. So I find it really essential to equip your kitchen, because it's not just what you eat, it's not just the ingredients you eat, but it's also the materials that you're preparing the food in that can have an effect on your body.
Sure.
And to me, the kitchen is a sacred space. It's something that I like to enter with a clear mind, with not being angry or upset, because this energy goes into the food as well. And, when I lived in India, something really impressed me. When you go to to temples especially, and you can see that the people who are allowed to cook in the kitchen are only the highly qualified Brahmins. They're like the very well trained priests and people who are very sattvic, who are very balanced, and because the priests understand that the consciousness with which you prepare your food and how you organize, how do you run the operation of preparing the food, will affect the quality of the food as well. So, it is a responsibility to cook for yourself and for others. And why not do it in a very pleasant environment?
Yeah, I love that. And the fact that the importance of how you prep the food, how you cook the food, the energy in which you do that, the energy in the kitchen, your own energetic emotions and mood. And I think, just shows us the importance of not only what we eat, but then again, how we are preparing that. And the kitchen is usually the hub of the household, right? It's usually the place that people gather. So it's a place that we tend to spend the most time in the house. So Divya, where will we start today on setting up your Ayurveda kitchen? Where would you like to start with this?
Well, why don't we start with equipment like cooking utensils, cookware. Oh. I like the way you say, Colette, the kitchen is the hub of the household, and it really is. Yeah. It is the heart of the house. It's not in front of the television. It's definitely around the table.
Yeah,
in a healthy household.
Yeah, I know growing up in Ireland, we have this massive wooden table in our kitchen, and it's very traditional. When anyone comes into your home in Ireland, you put on the kettle, you have a cup of tea, and you sit down at the kitchen table. And so everything happens around the kitchen table rather than going into a living room or something like that. It tends to be the hub of the household. And in our house, we had a big family. It was the train station. People are in and out all the time. I do think it's worth making this room very comfortable and a place where you enjoy being, and and that it has a good energy.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's talk about the cookware. Maybe we can start with cookware. In general, when you want to select tools and cooking equipment, the first thing you want to think about and to consider in terms of health is the material that it's made of. So what is it made of? That's really important because a lot of cookware is made of toxic materials.
Yeah.
So they're the most Ayurvedic and the best cookware, traditional Ayurvedic cookware that really charges your food with more prana is the unglazed clay pots. Unglazed, lead-free, make sure that they're free from any toxic chemicals. And traditionally, that's how people cook their meals in India. Even sometimes today, in villages, you can see them using clay pots for cooking.
Right. And can I ask you a question about those? So they're unglazed clay pots, which means they're very porous, right?
Yeah, it's porous. So when you can buy, like, there is this online store called ancientcookware.com, and they have really high quality, like tested for lead clay pots from different parts of the world. They have the traditional Indian pots. And when my teacher, Vaidya Mishra, saw those in my kitchen, he said, that's what my mom used to cook in. You can also get them from South America. I really like the lachambas. So, and they're porous. Clay is a porous material, and which allows for moisture to circulate within the pot, within the walls of the pot while you're cooking it. So it kind of adds more, the food breathes more while it's being cooked.
And they look beautiful.
They're beautiful. Well, they are a little high maintenance because first, when you get them, you have to season them. They usually comes with instructions on how to season them to make sure that they don't leak moisture.
Okay.
And that takes a couple of days and is very easy to do. And then you have to be very conscious of the temperature. You cannot put cold water in a hot pot. It will crack from the temperature shock.
Right.
And so they're not the ideal pots for when you're cooking in a hurry because they take a little longer to heat up. Like they take a little longer to heat, but they retain the heat for a longer time.
Yes.
So when I cook in a clay pot, I always turn off the heat 5 to 10 minutes before the food is ready, because the pot remains hot for 5-10 minutes and it continues to cook the food even when you turn off the heat.
Right. And so you're just using those in the oven, right? You can't use those stovetop.
No, you can use it on
Oh,
stovetop.
you can?
Totally, yeah. You can use it on gas.
Oh.
Sometimes for some pots, they ask you to use a diffuser, which is also fine. You can totally use them in the oven. I like to braise. I like to use the braising method, which is I saute the vegetables on the stovetop first and then add some liquid and then put them in the oven. And I mean, braised vegetables in a clay pot, it is so delicious. It just melts in your mouth. The texture is, you can't get it in any other cooking method.
Sounds great. And so you can put that clay, I didn't know you could put the clay pot on top of a gas flame. I thought it would be too intense for it.
Oh no, that's how it's been used traditionally. Like in India, they have the open fire
Right.
stove and they put the clay pot right on top. It doesn't work with convection stove, or certain electric surfaces. It doesn't work with that. So if you're considering buying a clay pot, make sure that it's compatible with your stovetop.
Okay.
I also use a clay pot to make my yogurt. So I like to make my own yogurt, and I have a special yogurt pot. I also there is a rice pot, like a smaller pot for cooking rice. The rice always comes out very perfectly cooked and very flavorful. It's something that when you cook in a clay pot, the food of the flavor becomes richer.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I guess because you're almost, it's I guess the same with the cast iron, it's seasoned. So it's also, because it's porous, it's like retaining flavors within the clay.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Now you're making me hungry. Okay. So that's very interesting about clay pots. I've obviously never used them, but I think they look beautiful. And yeah, you've definitely piqued my interest there, given how much flavor they add to food.
Yeah. Well, if a clay pot is too much work for you, because again, you have to be careful how you use it. You have to be more mindful when you're cooking in clay pots. It's not for very rushed cooking.
Yes.
Like I would never use a clay pot in our restaurant. It will break very quickly.
Right. Yeah.
Then for practical uses, for daily use, perhaps the best quality material is high quality stainless steel. I don't like the cheap quality. Cheap quality is usually very thin, and sometimes it emits this odor when you cook in it. So
and very light base, right?
Yeah. So these are not good pots. They don't last long, and also they're not very healthy to cook in. So high quality stainless steel is good, and they're usually expensive. But a lot of the high quality cookware has a lifetime warranty. And they last for generations. I mean, I've seen my father-in-law's pots, and they're in such good shape, and he cooks in them every day.
Wow.
So when it comes to equipping your kitchen, I'm a big fan of use higher quality, invest. It's higher price also, but it's like a long-term investment.
Yes. Yeah, so true. And so with the stainless steel pots, you want them to be heavy and I guess have a heavy base so it diffuses the heat evenly, right? Because I noticed that thinner ones, food can burn really fast because it's such a thin base.
Yes, exactly. And that's another advantage of them. It's sometimes there is usually aluminum as a middle layer. But that's okay because the food is not touching aluminum. So aluminum is one of those toxic materials you don't want your food to touch.
Right. Okay. And so then there's a whole thing with the pots and pans of the handles, right? Because a lot of times the handles either break on cheaper ones or they're plastic and you can't transfer them from the stovetop into the oven.
Yes, exactly. So that's another so you will see that high quality stainless steel cookware doesn't have plastic handles.
Right.
And that's another reason, because you can cook even in a saute pan or a saucepan. You can cook with them in the oven as well. So that's another reason to get them like fully stainless steel.
Yeah, because those plastic handles, I have had a couple of pans in my time without handles because they just fall apart.
Yeah, that's the old days. I think most companies nowadays don't use so much plastic, at least what I'm seeing in the United States.
Right, right. So definitely worth investing in good, high quality that you'll have for a lifetime, as long as you take care of them.
Yeah, and if budget is an issue, usually around Christmas or Thanksgiving, they have huge sales on kitchen cookware, and or you can put it on your wish list and tell your family that you want this for the holidays or for your birthday, because again, your food will cook much better. It will not burn easily, and it will be just they clean easily. It's just it just creates somehow it contributes to the peace of mind when you're using good quality equipment.
Absolutely, absolutely. Very good point. And so other types of material, we talked about cast iron.
Yes, so cast iron is the best nonstick material. That's another lifetime equipment.
Right. That can be handed down through families, right?
Yes, if you take good care of it.
Yeah.
And again, it requires seasoning.
Yes.
So make sure that because it can get rusty.
Yes. And so when you get a new cast iron pan, you have to put a layer of oil on it and put it in a low heat. That's one of the ways, right?
Yeah, well, nowadays, most cast iron companies, the pans already come seasoned. Well, if it looks gray color, then it's not seasoned. If it's black, it's seasoned. And usually the label will tell you if it's seasoned or not. I always buy them seasoned because it saves time.
Right. And so what you're saying is if it comes seasoned, and then after you cook, wash and dry it, that you put a little layer of oil on it. Is that correct? To keep it seasoned so it doesn't rust?
Yes, well, it depends on what you cooked in it. So, for example, I use a cast iron griddle to make pancakes and patties because it's very shallow. And I would cook with ghee. And then sometimes I don't have to wash it, because if I don't have to scrub anything, I would just wipe it and the layer of cooked oil remains there. And just make sure that after using, if you're washing, then you have to dry it right away, because otherwise it will get rusty. But if it kind of loses its seasoning and the food starts to stick to it, then yes, you can put a layer of oil. And then ideally you keep it in the oven at 200 degrees for a couple of hours. And instead of putting it on the stovetop, because the slow heat, it allows for the pores of the cast iron to open, for the oil to penetrate deeply. And then when you wipe it and when you cool it down, those pores close and they trap the seasoning inside. Okay,
so you're talking about putting in a low heat oven when you're seasoning it, or regularly?
So that's the way to season it, and that's also it prevents from smoke because the heat on the stove is much higher. So when you put it in the oven, it and you just leave it there for a couple of hours and come back and it's ready.
Okay.
If there is any rust that touches your food, then that becomes very toxic. So you have to be really careful to make sure that there is no rust anywhere on your pan.
Right. Okay. And, it's a good reminder for us all that what we're cooking in, of course, this is why we're staying away from toxic linings in pans and so on, and investing in good quality cookware is because whatever your food touches, it's affected by whatever chemicals were used in the processing.
Yeah, exactly. And one more thing about the cast iron, because cast iron is a reactive metal. So it's not recommended to cook acidic food in your cast iron. Right. So don't cook tomatoes, don't put vinegar, lemon juice, lime juice, because it will have a chemical reaction that will go into a food, and that will not be good.
Yeah, great point. And so are there other types of pots that you would recommend?
Yeah, I mean, glass is also good to cook in. I use especially glass bakeware.
Yes.
But there are glass pots. Also, sometimes I've seen like people struggling with cancer or some really serious disease. Sometimes they prefer to cook in non-metal pots. So glass, good quality porcelain with like what do you call it, ceramic,
Yeah.
good quality ceramic coating. Make sure it's a real ceramic and it's not ceramic like chemicals, because the initial ceramic coatings were actually, it wasn't ceramic, it was some kind of combination of chemicals, which was not good.
Oh.
And then of course bamboo, if you like to make
Yeah.
dumplings or something, like if you like to steam that way, especially in Asian style cooking.
Yeah.
And stoneware is also very helpful, especially for stoneware we really use for baking. I have these lava stone pots that are so thick and so heavy, and I've never really cooked in them. They just look really good.
Yeah, the only stone I've seen is like the stone griddle, that you plug in, you heat up.
Oh yeah, you can use that. You can have a stone, like a pizza stone, or I used to have a muffin pan made out of stone, so stone is another breathable material. It's just like similar to clay.
Right, very good. And, talking about, yes, the ceramic, I mean, that has become very popular recently. And so, like you said, really verifying the quality of the ceramic lining, because it is usually just a lining on the pan, right?
Yes, yes.
And so what should we do if that gets scratched?
You should just throw it out.
Right.
Because underneath is aluminum. So see, aluminum is a very good heat conductor. That's why it's used in cookware. It's very inexpensive also. But aluminum is a heavy metal that leaches into the food. It's another reactive metal that, especially if you put acidity, then acidic food, it will react. And unfortunately, a lot of the professional cookware is made out of aluminum because also it's inexpensive. When I go shopping for large pots for Divya's kitchen, I see these beautiful big pots, perfect size, and they're all made out of aluminum. And I see so many people buying them. And the reality is that most restaurants cook in aluminum pots and pans because they're cheaper. At Divya's kitchen, we don't do that. We only use stainless steel, and we pan fry our patties and pancakes in cast iron pans. But we do use sheet pans. Sheet pans are like baking trays, and they are aluminum. They're just professional sizes. But so you can line it with parchment paper or silicone mats.
Yeah, the silicone mats. Are they okay to use?
Yeah, so they are good, high quality food grade silicone mats, which are not toxic or reactive. Or we use also unbleached parchment paper. The silicone mats are reusable, so they're more environmentally friendly also. But yeah, so make sure that, like, even if you have like a muffin pan made out of aluminum, you can always use the non-bleached parchment paper muffin cups.
Right. Yeah, because I guess, sometimes it calls for, if you're using a sheet pan like that, that's aluminum. We say aluminium here. That's
better.
Yeah. It's a little bit more of a tongue twist. That if they call for in the recipes to line it with oil, but then of course that's going to mean if you're not using a non-bleached parchment paper, that's going to seep into the food.
Yeah. Always, if you're using aluminum, always, because aluminum is such a heavy metal. So if you were like when you were 10 years old and you ate in your grandma's place and she cooked in an aluminum pressure cooker, which is very popular in India still, and she cooked this nice chili for you in an aluminum pressure cooker, traces of aluminum might still be in your system, like 30 years later. Heavy metals are very hard to get out of the body, so
they're very stubborn.
Yeah, they're heavy. They just
Yes.
sit there.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And of course we're exposed to these heavy metals a lot in the environment. So as much as we can, when we have choices like how we choose our cookware, we want to avoid them.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
also plastic, of course. So avoid plastic mixing bowls and try to reduce plastic as much as possible. It, unfortunately, it's not possible completely because most food processors and blenders and, most of the appliances have plastic bowls.
Right.
But a lot of the brands nowadays offer BPA-free plastic, which is like a step. It's better than.
Yes. Yes, that's true. Okay. Any other pots? Any other recommendations there?
Well, I mean, again, the material is very important in terms of health. So always pay attention, and that's the thing also in terms of equipping your kitchen. It doesn't have to be. You don't have to do it like at once. Do it. You can do it gradually. You gradually get rid of the things you no longer want to use, and gradually add better quality materials and better quality pots. The other thing is the size.
Yeah.
So in general, when you look at cookware, you want to have at least one small saucepan, like a quart to 2 quarts saucepan. That's very helpful to make teas and oatmeal and little things, sauces, like small things. And then you can have like a 3 or 4 quart another saucepan for soups and khichdi and things like that. I really like to have 1 or 2 frying pans. I usually have 2 sizes, one smaller where you can toast spices and you can use it for a smaller amount of food, and then a bigger one, maybe 10-inch, 12-inch one where you can pan fry bigger things. And then I like saute pans. So the saute pan is the walls are kind of how much, like 2-3 inches high, straight walls, but wide. So it's like a wider pan. And that's very helpful for sauteing anything, leafy greens, vegetables. I use small saute pans to make my grain dishes. And a small saute pan is also very handy to cook for 1 or 2 people. So the size of your pots depends on how many people you're cooking for.
Right. But that's a good guideline. And also it just shows that you don't need a mass array as long as you have, these, the small, the medium and the large. That will suffice.
Yeah. And if you like to cook pasta or something that you need to boil in larger quantity of water, you can get a bigger stock pot or saucepan that you can put like 5 liters of water or something like that. And also don't buy equipment that you don't need. So like if you like to do a lot of stir fry, Asian style stir fry, then you need a wok. But if you're not stir frying, then you don't need the wok. So buy the kind of pots and pans, and also the little tools, the little gadgets. Like, do you really need an avocado slicer? I mean, you can totally do that with a knife.
Right. Yeah, no, I hear you, Divya. I'm an absolute minimalist, and having moved a lot, I really minimize my cookware, and a lot of it is very versatile. Yes.
Yeah. So that's the idea. Try to not buy things that you don't need. And also it's good to do an inventory of your kitchen and go through the things that you never use and maybe give them away as gifts.
Yes, that's a good idea. Yeah, do a little kitchen purge. And also just, you could have had some gadgets along the way that never saw the light of day. So yeah, bringing them out, maybe using them, or like you said, regifting.
Yeah.
So maybe we could talk about some of the things like that you would recommend, some of the little tools that are versatile and useful.
Yeah, well, first of all, it's essential to have a chef's knife. You need to have a good knife. And I always recommend invest in a good knife. Don't use the cheap knives that are not very sharp or not good materials. So a forged knife is always better quality.
A what knife? Sorry?
Forged. So the Forge knife is the kind of knife that's being pounded upon.
Oh, okay.
It's not a cut steel. It's something that has been handmade, and they're a little more expensive, but you could get a really good forge knife for like $120, $150, but it will last you a very long time. And they're much easier to sharpen, and they're just better quality knives. They're very durable. Again, another lifetime investment if you take good care of it. So in terms of cutting and slicing, the simplest option, the simplest collection is to have a chef's knife, a paring knife. The paring knife is a small knife, and then a serrated knife. So the serrated knife is the one with the, what do you call it?
The little teeth?
Yeah, the little teeth. It's a little curly. The blade is curly, kind of. And so that's very good for anything baked.
Right. I always think of that for bread. A bread
Yeah,
knife.
Bread, cakes, many other things. It's also good to use serrated knife for something that has very tough skin, like pineapple or tomatoes.
Yeah, that's true.
It's much easier to cut with it. And if you have a good knife, you need a good knife sharpener to keep your knives sharp. That's a sharp knife is safer than a dull knife, believe it or not.
Right. Yeah, I can imagine, because there could be a lot of slipping with a dull knife.
Yes, and it takes much less energy to cook, so your hand will not get tired using it. And of course, you need a cutting board also. Never cut without a cutting board.
So what material do you prefer?
I prefer wooden material. Like nowadays, my latest cutting board is a very good quality bamboo, and it's very easy to maintain. Like once in a while, I use a sandpaper to kind of scrub it, and then I use a special wood oil, so I season it. And if you take good care of your cutting board, it will last you a very long time. So you just have to make sure that you always dry it after you wash it so it doesn't warp.
Right. Are there kitchen tools that are necessities, you think?
So like grater. A grater is a cutting tool. Yeah. A peeler is a cutting tool, so you definitely need one of those. I also like to have a mandolin. You know what a mandolin is, like for slicing?
They're those dangerous machines.
Well, if you're afraid of it, you can also get there is a cut-proof glove that you can wear while you're slicing on the mandolin. You'll never cut yourself. But I've cut myself in a mandolin, and it's not fun.
I can imagine. I always see them on cooking shows. I've never had one, and they're always warning to be careful.
Yeah,
it's quite exposed blade on it.
It is, but I use it when I want to make a really pretty garnish or something. So it comes handy then. And then a peeler, mortar and pestle is another a tool for crushing herbs and spices.
Now, sorry to stop you there. So, what material do you recommend for a mortar and pestle?
Granite is really good.
Yeah, it's beautiful too.
So it's heavy duty. You can use marble maybe, but you have to make sure that there is a grit on the inside so that you can actually grind things. I also like,
so it's not smooth.
Yeah, it shouldn't. Smooth is more for mixing herbs. Right. But it has to have a little grit to be able to grind the spices. Otherwise, that's true. It will not work. The other one is you can use the Japanese suribachi.
Oh, I don't know that.
So it's like a Japanese style grinder bowl with a wooden pestle. So it's very pretty. It's made out of ceramic, and it grinds spices really well.
Okay. That's good to know.
Okay, so maybe, so this was about cutting. And then about measuring, I recommend using measuring spoons and measuring cups, especially when you're baking. And also if you're new to cooking and you're following a recipe, it's good to use measuring tools. And once you get comfortable in the kitchen and you kind of learn the recipe, then you know how much to put, how much of spices and salt and all that to put without measuring tools. But it's good to, and then when you're baking, you definitely want to use measuring tools.
Right. And so those are stainless steel sets?
Yeah, stainless steel is better than plastic, always. Right. And I also have the glass measuring cups for liquids.
Yeah, that's a very useful tool for the kitchen.
Yeah, and another great tool is to have a scale, like a kitchen scale.
Yeah.
I use one of those digital ones, and when I bake, I always measure the flours and other ingredients on the scale, because that's the most exact measurement.
And you need to be exact when baking.
Yeah, volume can change. I use it a lot also, like I'm writing my new cookbook now, and I like to give, like with spinach, it's not, you can have 4 cups of spinach can be 4 ounces and can be 6 ounces, depending on how much you pack it.
Right.
So I like to give my readers also measurements for like more ambiguous kind of chopped vegetables or fruits.
That's great. That's good.
All right. So then we spoke about cooking ingredients, straining. So you need to have something like mesh strainers.
Yes.
I use them to wash grains and lentils. I use them to, of course, strain anything. When I make paneer cheese, I use the strainer.
Yeah.
You make pasta.
Right. I think I use one daily, if I'm washing any grain before I cook it.
Yes. Yeah. So strainers, I have a couple of strainers, and I like, hand strainers with handles are fine. I also like the basket strainers because they fit perfectly in a bowl.
Right.
So
the ones that fold in you're talking about?
No. Here in the States, you can get like the strainer is a basket. It kind of sits. Oh. It has 2 short handles on the side, but it doesn't have a long handle.
Right. You know what I was thinking of? I was thinking of, that steamer that opens up like a flower. That's what I'm thinking of.
Oh, I love that one. So that's a great, that's a great tool to have, and it folds, and it's really good in a small kitchen. So, that's the other thing is that kitchens come of various sizes. Mm-hmm. And I've lived in very tiny kitchens, and now I have a very spacious and beautiful kitchen. But again, gather equipment that you can fit in.
Yeah. I'm on about the multi-purpose, small, and the least amount possible.
Yes, exactly. And our kitchen is also a cooking class kitchen. So I have a full room full of storage, because when we start having in-person cooking classes again, I will, I have 20 cutting boards. I have 20 chest knives. So we have enough equipment for everybody to have their own station and to practice cooking in class.
Oh, that sounds lovely. And you do those classes in the restaurant?
No, we do them at our new school base, which is also part of our residence. We live in the corner, but the rest is for our school. And it's a very beautiful space, and I can't wait to have people over. So today we're also offering 15% off our cooking class tuition. If any of you would like to try our virtual cooking classes, you can join them from anywhere in the world, and you also have access to the recordings as well.
Fabulous. So we'll give you the code for that at the end, so stay tuned.
Yeah, so I think, Colette, the last category is electric appliances.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Now, my first one, and that's small, but it's really essential, especially in an Ayurvedic kitchen, is a spice grinder.
Yes.
Because for healthy cooking, you want to grind your spices fresh. Mm-hmm. And because you get the most medicinal potency of the spice. So I use a spice grinder every day. Some spices, like small amount of cumin or black pepper or cardamom seeds, you can easily grind in a mortar and pestle. But something like coriander seeds, they're very hard to grind.
Right, exactly.
By hand, or if you make a spice blend, which in Ayurvedic cooking we use a lot of spice blends. Mm-hmm. So spice grinder is great for that. And I use a blender. Mm-hmm. For making, you can use it for soups, you can use it for making almond milk, for making any kind of
sauces. I use my blender.
Sauces. Yeah. So blender is good. And then I also like food processor because it allows you to chop food very finely, and so for dips or like patty mixes and things like that, the food processor comes in very handy.
Yeah,
So
they're very versatile too, aren't they? You get so many attachments with them.
yeah, you can use it as a grater and all that. So
Yeah.
it has, again, to me, the blender and the food processor expand the repertoire of type of dishes that you can prepare.
Right.
And then a slow cooker, like I have an Instant Pot.
Oh yeah, I want to ask you about that.
Well, the Instant Pot has many different features, and I use it I rarely pressure cook, because pressure cooking I use only in like when there is no other option, because pressure cooked food breaks down very much faster, and it's harder for the body to digest. Like I notice I always feel extra tired or bloated when I'm eating pressure cooked food.
Interesting. Yeah, I always think like the slower the food is grown and processed and cooked, I think the better. And eaten, voila. And eaten. I think it's always better.
Yeah, slow food. We're part of the slow food movement.
Yeah.
So, but it has a slow cooker function. It has a saute function. It has yogurt settings, so you can make yogurt because it keeps the temperature for incubating, like it keeps the same temperature. So I also like Instant Pot. Like when our kitchen was under renovation, I couldn't cook for a month and a half, and it was so difficult because I needed to eat breakfast at least. And so I would just plug in my Instant Pot in the laundry room, and I could make a quick breakfast. So it's very handy when you don't have kitchen per se, and you just need to cook something easily. You can travel with it. You can plug it in your car and make a quick meal if you're on a tour or something. So I like the versatility of the Instant Pot that way.
Yes. Yeah. That's a great tip.
And then you can also use it as a slow cooker, so you can cook overnight with it. And one thing that I love that I didn't have for many years, and when I got it, I was like, oh my God, this is like a game changer, is a grain mill.
Oh. Tell me about a grain mill.
So see, the thing is also, in terms of freshness, you want to use freshly milled flours in terms of health also. So they're most nutritious. They're also, it's much better storage and longer shelf life. When you have the whole grains and you mill them into fresh flours, it literally takes seconds. It takes seconds to make a cup of flour, but it's just so, the flavor, the texture of everything you bake, it just feels so alive. It's amazing.
I've never even seen one. What do they look like?
Well, my favorite brand is Como. It's a German brand, and it uses a stone grinding mechanism. Oh. And it's interesting. It has a very long warranty, and the more you use it, the sharper the stones become. So it's actually better.
Oh wow!
And I got one that's a combo of milling, and also it has a flaker. So I make my fresh rolled oats when I want to make an oatmeal.
Wow, that's lovely.
You can make barley flakes and quinoa flakes and other things. So, and it's a beautiful wooden machine. It looks wooden on the outside. It's just like it makes the kitchen, it really beautifies the kitchen.
Oh, I'll have to check it out. I've never seen one. Besides from the industrial ones, but I've never seen one for a kitchen.
Yeah, they have smaller sizes. It's a couple $100, but again, it's something that I tell you, I have so many students who are like, I don't know, but they like to bake. And even when you make chapatis or something like that, and once they try, they're like, wow, this is like, that's changer. Really, it's like day and night. It's the flavor and the freshness of fresh flour is just amazing.
Well, it makes sense rather than something sitting on a shelf for a long time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you don't have to store your flowers in the fridge and all that. It's just, at Divya's Kitchen, we have two of the Como commercial ones, and we use one for gluten flours and the other one for gluten-free. Wow. And we always use fresh flour at our restaurant.
I love how you're, down to the very detail of the equipment you use and how you process things, that much detail goes into your cooking at your kitchen. I love how conscious you are about that.
Yeah, thank you. It's important to me.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And it shows in the quality of the food at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wonderful. So do you have more to share? Because I have a question as well before we finish up.
Yeah, I mean, just finally, also in terms of kitchen, in terms of storage, so
Yes.
it same principle applies for using non-toxic materials to store, like the ingredients of your pantry and your cabinets. I use a lot of glass
Yeah.
jars,
Yeah. And
airtight.
reusing glass jars, you know, when you
Mm-hmm.
buy your beans or whatever in glass jars, that you reuse them. It's wonderful to recycle
Exactly.
them.
I never throw away a glass jar,
No
Colette.
need to worry. I have a ridiculous amount of glass jars.
Yeah, and then the other thing is organize your kitchen, because that's like it's important to label things, especially if they're more than you in the kitchen, who use the kitchen. Label, sometimes I'll put the date also to know how fresh the ingredient is. Make sure, I like airtight containers because it protects the food from getting spoiled from moisture and air, and keep everything enclosed, so to be away from the light. That's important also.
Yeah.
And organize it nicely, make it all clean. So cleanliness is super important in the kitchen, because again, this is where you prepare food, and so many illnesses can be foodborne.
Yeah.
Yeah, so cleanliness, keeping your counters clean, your floors clean, your sink, but also keeping your pots clean and shiny as well. So all of this elevates consciousness. See, cleanliness and order elevate consciousness, and it also make your cooking more efficient. So when you have a well-organized kitchen, you prepare a meal much faster, because you're not constantly looking for things and you open and bags started falling and spilling, and yeah.
Yeah, that's so true, that the organization really helps the cooking process to flow much better.
Yes.
Yes, well, my question was on storing the leftovers, these glass dishes, like Pyrex glass dishes.
Yeah.
With
yeah,
the plastic tops, plastic covers, lids. So it's not touching your food, right? But
that's
the
fine.
steam, you know, if you put hot food in that and you put the plastic lid on top of it, is there some plastic being released via the steam? I always wonder that.
Well, you should always cool down the food before you cover it and put it in the fridge. So there shouldn't be. It's not such a big deal. Nowadays, many manufacturers are starting to use silicone tops, which is better than plastic.
Right. Okay, good. And then, yes, we mentioned earlier avoiding storing in food in plastic or reheating in plastic, because that just breaks down those molecules in the plastic. And we know that a lot of plastic contains BPA, which obviously will get into your food, or storing acidic things, right? Like tomato sauce in a plastic container. So be really careful about that.
Yeah, or anything with fat in it, because the fat kind of, the plastic starts to leach into the fat. Putting food in plastic and putting it in the microwave is like the worst thing to do.
Right. Yeah, let's talk about the microwave, because that's part of the kitchen equipment. And I always recommend that people don't use a microwave, because I feel like it just kills any prana in the food. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, you noticed that I didn't mention it as an essential appliance.
It doesn't exist in my world.
Yeah, so when you look at the pranic value of the food, microwave food has very little or no prana. It's just the technology just kills the life force in the food. And it will fill your stomach, but it will not charge you with energy. And that's why we eat, right? We need to get energy as well. So if you have a microwave that you cannot get rid of, use it for storage, but don't use it for cooking. Yeah, it's really not good for your health.
Yeah. So, and then when, I have clients and they're taking their lunch to work with them. So I recommend transporting in a thermos that's going to keep it hot, the food hot. Do you have any recommendations for that sort of thing, transporting your food for lunch, where you're in an office, there's only a microwave available, you don't want to use that?
Yeah, that's an excellent recommendation, Colette. So before you pour the food, you can put boiling hot water in the thermos.
Right.
and then throw out the water and then put the food immediately. And this will keep it hot a little longer.
Okay.
And also maybe get one of those thermal lunch bags that will also retain the temperature a little longer as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can get food thermoses. Thermoses are not just for drinks; they're also for food with wider, and they are shorter and wider opening. They can be very, very handy. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great thing, especially if you're transporting your lunch with you and to make life easier and to avoid using the microwave.
And also, I mean, depends on the office. Some offices, you can bring the smallest Instant Pot because it has a warm function, so you can actually keep your food warm.
That's a great idea.
So you can just plug it in, and if your colleagues don't mind, then that's another option. Or you could just quickly cook, like with our kitchen packets. If you can plug in a small Instant Pot, and you can slow cook it or saute it. You don't have to pressure cook it, and you can just plug it in and cook a kitchen packet real quick and have a completely fresh hot meal.
Lovely. Tell us more about your kitchen packets and also what else you offer. Good segue.
Well, it's the kitchen. We have the kitchen packets, which are 4 types of kitchen, one for each dosha and one tridoshic, which they're not just for the dosha, they're also for the season, of course. They're seasonal as well. And we soak the lentils and then dehydrate them. We wash the greens. So everything is soaked, washed with spices and salt and dried curry leaves in there. And you just basically pour it in boiling hot water. And you can add ghee or olive oil. And you have a fresh hot meal for 2 people or 3, sometimes in less than 20 minutes. And it's amazing. Delicious. Yeah,
so
you don't have to stir it.
Yeah, so you take the packet, you put it in your bowl, right? Or do you have to or you just put add the hot water in?
So you put it in the pot with boiling hot water.
Right.
And then you can add a little ghee or olive oil and then cover and simmer on low heat for 15 to 20 minutes.
Wow. That's great.
Yeah. It's very practical. So, there are many ways. That's part of my mission, is to help people to make Ayurvedic food and fresh meals, healthy meals, very accessible to people. So you don't have to use frozen food and frozen meals, and like something that's convenient, but at the same time is charged with prana, and it feels really good to eat it, and it's delicious.
And you've done all the hard work already, which is amazing. And added all the good energy into it. That's fantastic. So let's tell people where they can find that in your store online, and also about your discounts you're giving today.
Yes, so you can find our kitchen packets. We also have a soup packet, the Soothing Monk soup. We have a raisin cranberry sauce, which you just blend with hot water and it's ready. So all of this and more, we have teas and spice blends. All of this is available at our online store on divyaskitchen.com. And please, if you use the code for our listeners today is Elements of Ayurveda 15, Elements of Ayurveda 15. You will receive 15% discount off your first purchase, and you can use the same code for our cooking classes, which you can sign up for at bvtlife.com. B is in boy, V is in Victor, T is in Tom, life.com. That's our school site. Would love to have you, would love to serve you. We really put our hearts into everything we do, and we love to connect with people from all over the world. It's been amazing how I have a student for our culinary training right now, a student from Japan. And I'm
Fantastic.
Like, wow.
Isn't that amazing? Yeah. I love connecting with clients from all over the world as well. It's just, technology is amazing. It's allowing us to spread so much of this Ayurvedic wisdom.
Yeah. And I'm so inspired by how you're able to reach out to so many people, Colette, and help them in so many different ways.
That's it. We're just so passionate about it, right? We want to share it with everyone.
Yes, because it helps people. That's the thing. I'm passionate because I see the benefit and how it helps people with their health, with their life.
Yeah, and this is what we know will be the change in the world when people are vibrating at a higher level of greater consciousness because they're eating better and they have better awareness about food and self-care and mindfulness and so on.
Yes. That's a dream.
Voila, exactly. So those links to divyakitchen.com, where you can get 15% off your first time purchase using the code Elements of Ayurveda 15 and 15% off the online cooking classes with bvtlife.com. Just click on the link in the show notes and I'll get you over to Divya's very kind offers. And so you have regular online cooking classes, Divya?
Yes. All kinds of many different types. And it's not just me teaching. There are also amazing guest teachers as well. So you can learn Ayurvedic cooking and food and self-care from many different angles.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, Divya, it's always a pleasure. I think this episode was very helpful today. I learned a lot in this episode as well. And thank you so much for sharing.
Yes, thank you for having me again. It's always a pleasure. And I hope that this was a very practical discussion. I hope that our listeners will be inspired to go to the kitchen and do something.
Yeah, make it a place of love and good energy and inspiration for your cooking.
Yes. Thank you again for having me, Colette.
My pleasure, Divya. We'll chat again soon.
Yes.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Really wonderful tips there from Divya, and I hope you found this episode helpful. If you think it would be helpful to family or friends, please share it with them. And check out the links in the show notes for Divya's kitchen and BVT Life and the wonderful offers that Divya gave today. And if you want to know more about my online services, my online consultations, at-home cleanses, my educational courses, then click on the link in the show notes or visit my website, elementshealingandwellbeing.com. If you haven't already subscribed to the podcast, please do so the new episodes will automatically download for you. And if you would like to rate and review the podcast, I would really appreciate that. Thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time, take good care of yourself, be well, and bye for now. Slán go fóill.